The smell of freshly mown grass always brought me back. Not just to summer, but to a specific summer, when I was 10 and Mark was 6, and Mom and Dad were still here. This house, the one with the peeling paint on the porch railing and the rose bushes that always seemed to thrive despite my inconsistent pruning, wasn't just a building. It was the heart of my entire history. That's why Karen's actions felt like a knife twisting in my gut. My name is Sarah, and this story is about how my brother's new wife Karen called the cops on me, thinking I was some rude landlord trying to boss her around. She had no idea how wrong she was, or the deep, tangled roots of history she was ripping up with her petty complaints. It started subtly, like a slow drip, but it built into a flood. Mark, my younger brother, had always been a bit lost, sweet, kind-hearted, but he struggled to keep his feet under him. After Mom and Dad passed away, one right after the other, within a year, it was just us. I was 22, he was 18. The house, our childhood home, was willed to me. It wasn't a mansion, just a comfortable worn-in family home. I had a good job, saved what I could, and kept the house going. Mark, bless his heart, drifted. He had a few jobs, a few relationships that fizzled, a few times where he just needed a soft place to land. And that soft place was always here, in our home. I never charged him rent. Not a dime. He'd chip in for utilities when he could, but mostly, I just wanted him to be okay. He lived in the house for years, on and off. When he was off, I'd rent out a room to cover costs, but when he needed it, it was always there. He was my brother, my only remaining family. This house was our anchor, our last tangible link to a past that felt increasingly distant. Then came Karen. She swept into Mark's life like a tornado. About 6 months before everything blew up, Mark, usually so quiet and reserved, was instantly smitten. She was loud, confident, and had a way of taking over a room. At first, I was just happy he seemed happy. He'd bring her over, and she'd smile, but her eyes always seemed to be scanning, assessing. I lived in my own little place across town, a small condo that was easier for my work commute, but I was at the house constantly, checking on things, doing repairs, gardening, and yes, checking on Mark. It was my property, my responsibility, my legacy. The first hint of trouble came when I went over one Saturday morning to fix a leaky faucet in the downstairs bathroom. I'd told Mark one was coming. I even texted him a reminder. When I walked in, Karen was in the kitchen, coffee in hand, staring at me like I was a stranger who'd just wandered in off the street. "Oh, Sarah, you just let yourself in," she said, her voice dripping with an icy politeness that felt anything but polite. I froze, wrench in hand. "Hey Karen, yeah," I texted Mark. "The faucet in the downstairs bathroom is really dripping. Thought I'd take care of it before it got worse." She raised an eyebrow. Well, usually people knock. Or at least, wait for a reply. My heart gave a little jolt. Usually, I'd been walking into this house unannounced for 30 years. It was my house. But I swallowed it down. Right, sorry, habit, I guess. I forced a smile and headed for the bathroom. As I worked, I could feel her eyes on me. It felt alien. This was my space, and she was making me feel like an intruder. A few weeks later, I called Mark about the gutters. They were overflowing, and with autumn approaching, I worried about water damage. "Hey Mark," I said, "I noticed the gutters are really packed. Do you think you could clear them out this week? Or I can come over on Saturday and do it, if you're busy." Mark mumbled something about being busy, then put Karen on the phone. I hadn't even realized she was there. "Hi Sarah," she said, her voice firm. "Look, we're busy. Mark works hard. We don't have time for home maintenance projects right now. You're the landlord, right? Isn't that your responsibility?" I actually laughed. A short, sharp sound. "Karen, I'm not a landlord. I mean, I own the house, but Mark lives there for free. It's his home too, he helps with the upkeep." I tried to keep my voice even, but a tremor of annoyance ran through it. "And yes, it's my responsibility, but it's also his to help out. He lives there. So you admit it's your responsibility," she shot back, ignoring everything else I'd said. "Just send someone, or come do it yourself then. Don't burden Mark with it." I hung up the phone feeling a mix of disbelief and simmering anger. Burden Mark. I'd been supporting Mark in countless ways for years. The gutters were a minor ask. This wasn't about the gutters. This was about control. From then on, it was a steady stream of passive-aggressive comments, veiled accusations, and outright demands. Karen seemed to have decided I was the landlord, and a bad one at that. She'd leave notes on the kitchen counter, written in a florid, overly polite script, about things she wanted fixed. Leaky kitchen faucet needs addressing, per tenant agreement. There was no tenant agreement. The dryer sounds like a jet engine. Needs repair or replacement. The backyard needs serious landscaping. This is a disgrace. I'd try to explain. Karen, this isn't a rental property in the usual sense. This is our family home. I keep it up, but it's not a service. She'd just nod vaguely, her eyes glazing over, as if I were speaking a foreign language. She truly seemed incapable of grasping that I wasn't some stranger collecting rent. One particularly galling incident involved the old oak tree in the backyard. It was a magnificent, ancient thing, reaching its branches over the entire yard. Our treehouse, long since rotted away, had been nestled in its branches. Mark and I had spent countless hours climbing it, building forts under it. It was part of the family. Practically. Karen declared it unsightly, and demanded I trim it back significantly or have it removed. Removed? I gasped, when she brought it up during a rare family dinner, a dinner I paid for, naturally. Karen, that tree has been here for 100 years. Mark and I grew up with that tree. She shrugged. Well, it's shedding leaves all over the place, and it blocks the sun. It's just too big for the yard. Mark, who had been silent through most of her pronouncements, finally spoke up, a faint flush on his cheeks. It's a beautiful tree, honey. Sarah's right. It's always been there. Karen just gave him a look. A look that said, whose side are you on? He quickly retreated, burying his nose in his plate. My heart ached for him. He seemed so diminished, so cowed by her. I explained to Karen, patiently, that trimming a tree of that size was expensive, and removing it even more so. Besides, I added, I don't want to. It's beautiful. Well, if you're not going to maintain your property properly, then we will, she declared, her jaw set. A few days later, I drove by the house and saw a crew with chainsaws. My stomach dropped. They were really doing it. Not just a trim, but a severe, almost brutal pruning. Whole limbs were gone, hacked off in jagged cuts. The beautiful, spreading canopy was mangled. I felt sick, like a part of my own body had been mutilated. I pulled over, heart pounding. What are you doing? I asked the men. They looked confused, then pointed to Karen, who was standing on the porch, arms crossed, a triumphant smirk on her face. I told them to do it. She called out. You wouldn't, so I did. You can reimburse us later. Of course, reimburse you. I walked right up to her, my voice shaking with a rare, barely contained fury. Karen, you had no right. This is my tree. My property. It's obstructing our yard, she retorted, her eyes narrowed. And as your tenants, we have a right to a pleasant living environment. This is just basic property management. I stared at her, utterly speechless. Property management. She really, truly believed she was some tenant, and I was some landlord, bound by imaginary rules. The fact that she had unilaterally made such a destructive decision about my property, our family tree, without even consulting me beyond a casual mention at dinner, was infuriating. I just turned and walked away. There was no reasoning with her. She lived in a different reality. I called Mark later that day, fighting back tears. Mark, how could you let her do that to the tree? He sounded defensive, weak. She really wanted it done, Sarah. She said you wouldn't do it. It's my tree, Mark. It's our tree. It means something. Why didn't you stop her? He sighed, a long, tired sound. I don't know, Sarah. I just didn't want to fight about it. That was Mark. Always avoiding conflict, always taking the path of least resistance. And Karen, sensing his weakness, bulldozed right over him. It wasn't just the tree, or the gutters, or the notes. It was the growing chasm between Mark and me, the way she was driving a wedge, making me feel like an outsider in my own family, in my own home. The tension festered. Every interaction with Karen was a minefield. She treated me with a mixture of polite disdain and overt demands. She started referring to me as the owner to her friends, usually with a sneer. I overheard her once saying, "Oh, our landlord is so cheap. Won't fix anything unless you nag her for weeks." My blood ran cold. I tried to talk to Mark. Really talk. Mark, I said one evening, after Karen had gone out, this isn't working. Karen treats me like I'm a stranger, like I'm some terrible landlord. This is my house. I let you live here because I love you, because I want to help you. I don't charge you a dime. She needs to understand that. He looked away, fiddling with the remote. I know, Sarah. I've tried to explain it to her. She has a different way of seeing things. She thinks it's normal for landlords to handle everything. But I'm not just a landlord, Mark. I'm your sister. This is where we grew up. She's ruining things. She's ruining our relationship. My voice cracked. He finally looked at me, a flicker of pain in his eyes. I know. I'll talk to her again, I promise. But I knew he wouldn't, or if he did, it would be a half-hearted attempt. Easily dismissed by Karen. He was too deep and too scared of her displeasure. The final straw came on a sweltering July afternoon. I had driven over to the house because I needed to get something from the attic. My grandmother's antique hope chest was stored up there, full of old photo albums and precious family mementos. My cousin was coming to visit, and I wanted to show her some pictures. I had called Mark earlier, but he hadn't picked up, and I knew he was at work. I figured Karen might be home, or I'd just let myself in as usual. I pulled up, got out of my car, and walked up the familiar porch steps. The screen door creaked. I pushed open the front door, which was unlocked, and called out, "Hello, Karen, it's Sarah." Silence. I figured she wasn't home. I headed straight for the attic stairs, which were off the living room. As I started to ascend, I heard a voice. "What do you think you're doing?" I turned. Karen was standing at the entrance to the living room, a phone pressed to her ear, her eyes blazing. She was wearing a bathrobe, her hair askew. She looked furious. "Karen, hi." I called Mark, but he didn't answer. "I just need to grab something from the attic, my grandmother's hope chest, the photo albums." I gestured vaguely up the stairs. "You can't just barge into someone's house," she practically shrieked, her voice tight with anger. "This is completely unacceptable. This is breaking and entering. You are violating our privacy. Karen, it's my house." I tried to explain, for what felt like the 100th time. "I own this house, I live here sometimes. I store things here. I have a right to be here." "No, you don't," she spat. "You are the landlord. You give us notice. You don't just walk in uninvited. This is harassment. I'm calling the police." My jaw dropped. The police? She couldn't be serious. "Karen, don't be ridiculous," I pleaded, my voice rising in exasperation. "I'm just trying to get some family photos. I'm not doing anything wrong." "Oh, you're doing plenty wrong," she yelled, her face contorted with rage. "You're a creepy, invasive landlord who thinks she can do whatever she wants. Well, not in our house. This is our home now, and I'm not putting up with it anymore." She turned away from me, still holding the phone. I heard her voice, loud and clear, talking to an operator. "Yes, hello. I need to report a trespasser. My landlord, she keeps letting herself into our home without permission. She's here now. She just walked right in. She's refusing to leave. It feels like harassment." My blood ran cold. The sheer audacity of it. The lie, the complete distortion of reality. She was actually doing it. She was calling the police on me, in my own home. My hands started to tremble. A wave of hurt, betrayal, and absolute disbelief washed over me. All the years I'd spent supporting Mark, caring for this house, holding on to our family history, and she was accusing me of being a trespasser. I walked numbly back into the living room, trying to make sense of what was happening. This wasn't just about the house anymore. This was a direct assault on my identity, my relationship with my brother, and my entire history. It felt like forever. But it was probably only 10 minutes before I saw the flashing blue and red lights outside. 2 police cruisers. 2 officers. My heart sank. This was really happening. Karen, suddenly prim and composed, stood on the porch as the officers approached. She pointed at me, still standing dumbfounded in the living room doorway. "That's her, officer." She just walked right in. No notice, nothing. It's been ongoing harassment. The officers, a man and a woman, were calm and professional. They walked up to the porch. "Ma'am, can we talk to you for a moment?" The male officer, Officer Miller, asked Karen. Karen launched into her story. A dramatic tale of invasion of privacy, a landlord who constantly harassed them, demanding things, showing up unannounced. She painted me as an antagonist, a villain. I just stood there, stunned, listening to her twisted narrative. My own words felt stuck in my throat. Then Officer Miller turned to me. "Ma'am, Can you step out here, please? I walked onto the porch, feeling a strange mix of shame and righteous indignation. Officer, I began, my voice quiet but firm. I understand there's a misunderstanding here. I'm not trespassing. This is my property. Karen scoffed loudly. She says that, but she's our landlord. She owns the property, yes, but we rent it from her. She can't just come in whenever she wants. Officer Miller looked from Karen to me, a hint of confusion on his face. Ma'am, do you have a lease agreement with these tenants? He asked me. No, I said, shaking my head. There's no lease. My brother, Mark, lives here. I let him live here. For free, I own this house. He's my brother. Karen scoffed again, louder. This time, that's a lie. We pay her. Not rent exactly, but we help with bills, and we give her money for repairs. She's just trying to cover her tracks because she knows she's in the wrong. We provide her with generous contributions for the upkeep of the property. Yes, she elaborated, trying to sound sophisticated. It's an informal arrangement, but it doesn't mean she can barge in. My face must have gone pale. Karen was twisting every act of generosity, every small contribution Mark might have made, into a landlord-tenant relationship. The money for bills was never even a fraction of what a mortgage, taxes, and maintenance cost. And the generous contributions for upkeep was a joke. I paid for everything, from the roof to the water heater. She was painting me as a greedy, intrusive landlord, and herself as a victimized tenant. Look, I said, trying to regain my composure. I can prove I own this house. The deed is right here, in the safe deposit box at the bank. Or I have a copy of the property tax assessment. Officer Miller nodded slowly. And you say your brother lives here with his wife? Yes, I confirmed. Mark is my brother. This was our family home. Our parents left it to me. I've always let Mark live here, for free, because he needed a place. Karen just moved in with him a few months ago. She has no idea about the history. Karen snorted. History? What history? You're a landlord. We're your tenants. That's the only history here. The female officer, Officer Ramirez, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. Ma'am, she said to me, her voice gentle but firm. Do you have any proof of ownership on you? Or something that shows your relationship to Mr. Mark? I thought for a moment. Proof. What did I have? Then it hit me. My purse. I always carried a small, laminated card in my wallet, a reminder of home ownership for property tax purposes, something my accountant had told me to keep. It had the address and my name as the owner. Yes, I said, digging into my bag. I have my property tax assessment. It has my name on it, as the owner of record. I pulled out my wallet, my hands still shaking slightly, and carefully unfolded the small card. I handed it to Officer Ramirez. She took it, her brow furrowing as she read the details. Her eyes scanned from my name, to the property address, to the owner designation. Then she looked up at me, a different expression on her face. A flicker of understanding, and then, something like sympathy. She passed the card to Officer Miller. He read it, his eyes widening slightly. He glanced at Karen, then back at the card. There was a silence, thick and heavy. Karen, meanwhile, was oblivious. See, she's just trying to distract you. It's ridiculous. She's a terrible landlord. We just want her to stop harassing us and to stay out of our home unless she gives us proper notice. She folded her arms across her chest, a self-satisfied smirk on her face. Convinced she had won. Officer Miller slowly walked up to Karen. His voice, when he spoke, was softer than before, but carried an undeniable weight. Ma'am, he said, holding up the tax assessment card. This property. It's not a rental in the way you seem to understand it. Karen blinked. What do you mean? This woman, he gestured to me, Sarah, is the sole owner of this property. The deed, the taxes, everything, is in her name, and she is not your landlord. She's your husband's sister. Karen's smug expression crumbled. Her mouth fell open. Her eyes darted from Officer Miller to me, then back again. What? No, that's not right. She's the landlord. Ma'am, Officer Ramirez chimed in, equally gently. The property records clearly indicates Sarah is the owner. And she's stated she allows your husband, her brother, to reside here free of charge. In such a situation, she doesn't require notice to enter her own property. She's well within her rights. Karen's face went from indignant red to a sickly white. The realization, like a punch to the gut, finally seemed to hit her. She looked at me, truly looked at me, for the first time since she'd moved in. Not as a landlord, but as Sarah, as Mark's sister. As the owner of the house she had been claiming as hers. The silence stretched, broken only by the chirping of crickets in the humid afternoon air. The weight of her accusations, her demands, her distorted reality, hung in the air. So, Officer Miller continued, his voice now entirely neutral. There's no trespassing here. Sarah is on her own property. Unless you have a formal lease agreement that states otherwise. Which she says you don't, then she has every right to be here. He paused. And given the circumstances, it would appear the call was made under false pretenses. Karen stammered, but she's always acted like a landlord. Asking for things, telling us what to do, ... Double quotes her voice trailed off. She looked utterly lost, humiliated. She owns the house, ma'am, Officer Ramirez reiterated, patiently. She has the right to manage her property as she sees fit. And to access it. If she's letting her brother live here for free, that's a generous act, not a landlord-tenant relationship. I watched Karen's face, seeing the layers peel away. The entitlement, the anger, the carefully constructed facade. All replaced by raw, unadulterated shame. We suggest, Officer Miller concluded, his voice firm, that you and your husband have a clear conversation with Sarah about the terms of his residency here, and avoid calling us for situations that are clearly not police matters. He handed me back my property tax card. I took it, my hand steady now. The officers turned, exchanged a few more quiet words with each other, and then started walking back to their cars. As they left, Officer Ramirez gave me a small, sympathetic nod. I stood there, alone on the porch with Karen. The silence was deafening. Her gaze was fixed on the ground, her shoulders slumped. The triumphant smirk was gone, replaced by a hollow, defeated look. Karen, I said, my voice barely a whisper, filled with the exhaustion of years of misunderstanding and the pain of her betrayal. This house. It's not just a house. It's where Mark and I grew up. It's where our parents lived and died. I've kept it going for him, for us. I let him live here because I love him, because he's my brother. I've never asked him for anything more than to help take care of it, to treat it with respect. And to be happy. She still didn't look up. You called the police on me, I continued, my voice gaining strength. On me, in my own home. You accused me of trespassing, of harassment. All because you couldn't understand that generosity isn't the same as a transaction. That family isn't a landlord-tenant agreement. A tremor ran through her. She finally looked up, her eyes watery. I didn't know, she whispered. Mark. He never said you owned it, he just said you were helping him out. I thought you were just a really strict landlord. He told you I was helping him out. For free, I stated. The words, cold and precise. That's exactly what I was doing. You chose to interpret that as strict landlord. You chose to believe I was trying to control you. When I was just trying to preserve what was ours. What was mine? The full weight of what she had done, the complete lack of respect she had shown, hit me anew. All the little slights, the big demands, the mutilation of the tree. It was all because she saw me as someone to be fought, not someone who was giving her husband a home out of pure love. Just then, Mark's car pulled into the driveway. He looked tired after work, but when he saw me, and then Karen's tear-streaked face, and the lingering police cars driving away, his eyes went wide with alarm. He quickly got out of the car and walked up the steps, his gaze fixed on Karen. What happened? He asked, his voice low and concerned. Karen, Sarah, what's going on? Karen burst into tears, messy, ugly sobs. I messed up, Mark. She choked out. I called the cops on Sarah. I thought she was trespassing. She showed them the deed. Mark, she owns the house. She owns it all. Mark looked at me, a profound sadness in his eyes. He knew all along. He had just been too afraid, too passive, to tell Karen the truth, or to stand up for me. He had let her believe the lie, let her erode our relationship, let her desecrate our family home. Mark, I said, my voice heavy with disappointment. Why didn't you tell her? Why did you let her think I was some kind of landlord? Why did you let her do all of this? I gestured around the mutilated tree, the hostile air that permeated my own property. He hung his head. I tried, he mumbled. I told her you owned it, that you were just helping. She just didn't get it. She didn't get it because you didn't make her get it. Mark, I said, my voice cracking with emotion. You let her disrespect me. You let her destroy our tree. You let her call the police on me. Your own sister. In our own home. Tears finally stung my eyes. I've always been here for you, Mark. Always, and this is how you repay me. By letting your new wife treat me like dirt. He looked up, his eyes filled with a desperate pain. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I didn't know what to do. What to do? I repeated, incredulous. You could have told her the truth, loudly and clearly. You could have stood up for me. You could have respected me, and this home. I looked from Mark, who looked utterly defeated, to Karen, who was still sobbing quietly. The air was thick with unspoken truths and irreparable damage. The house, our sanctuary, now felt tainted, bruised. I finally turned to leave. There was nothing left to say. Not now. The raw emotion was too much. I need to go, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I need to think. I walked past them, down the porch steps, and got into my car. As I drove away, I saw Mark with his arm around a still sobbing Karen. The drive home was a blur of tears and raw emotion. The weight of it all was crushing. The years of quiet support, the unspoken sacrifices, the unconditional love I had for my brother, all of it had been trampled underfoot by Karen's arrogance and Mark's spinelessness in the days and weeks that followed. The silence between Mark and me was deafening. He called a few times, leaving hesitant voicemails, trying to apologize, trying to explain. I couldn't bring myself to answer. The wound was too fresh, too deep. He never made Karen call or apologize, which spoke volumes. I eventually went back to the house to retrieve my grandmother's hope chest. I called Mark first, and he made sure Karen wasn't there. The air was awkward between us, heavy with unspoken things. He looked thinner, more tired. The tree in the backyard looked even more mutilated in the sunlight. I barely stayed long enough to drag the chest out. The house, once a source of comfort and continuity, now felt like a battleground, a symbol of everything that had gone wrong. I still owned it, still paid the taxes and the mortgage, but it no longer felt like our home. It felt like a burden, a reminder of a generosity that had been abused, a family bond that had been shattered. I finally rented it out. Properly, with a formal lease and everything. To a lovely young couple who appreciated the quiet neighborhood, and didn't mind the scars on the old oak tree. Mark had to find his own place. It broke my heart, in a way, to displace him, but I couldn't bear to have Karen living there, defiling what was so sacred to me. It was the only way I could reclaim my peace, and my history. The relationship with Mark never fully recovered. We spoke, sometimes, on holidays, but the easy warmth, the implicit trust, was gone. Karen remained in his life, and that was a constant, unspoken barrier between us. She had called the cops on me, in my own home, and in doing so, she had exposed a truth far more painful than any lie. That my brother, my only remaining family, had let it happen. The smell of freshly mown grass still brings me back, but now, mixed with that nostalgic scent, is the bitter tang of betrayal. The house stands, still rooted. But a piece of my heart was irrevocably severed that hot July afternoon, when I showed her the deed, and the truth ripped us all apart.